In fact, he was on the bridge when a shell from the Yamato actually impacted the ship, shook it, literally blew the shirt off of Evans, severed one of his fingers, killed half the battle staff on the bridge. And a medic came up to him to said, "Here, give me your hand. I'm going to treat you." He said, "No, go help someone who's more wounded." And he kept fighting the ship. That's the kind of people that we had back then in the silent generation. Hats off to them.
It's incredible. I mean, these stories from the war. My grandfather was a pilot in World War II.
Really? What did he fly?
A reconnaissance plane.
PBY? Catalina?
You're putting me on the spot. And
it's one of my favorite
not
planes.
Exactly sure which plane. It was in the Battle of Sicily. He was awarded a Flying Cross.
Wow.
For his actions that day.
Wow, that's a big deal.
But it was he's in Arlington, and it's a big deal, and I've held a lot of pride.
I'll never forget when I was in the military, I got to interact with some of the most extraordinary people I've ever met in my life. And, sometimes you can just tell, people have been through some really serious incidents when they've got some very high ranking decorations.
Yeah.
And they will almost universally tell you, these really don't mean much. It means that I either got cornered or I got really mad. Yeah, you never want to have to do heroics.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't even really imagine what that experience must have been like to be on a ship in conflict. Because we think of conflict, our imaginations are, all the examples we have are basically terrestrial, right? Like we have, it's a completely different, and it feels very claustrophobic, very scary. There's water.
Well, you just do your job. That's what I've been told by the surface warriors in my own Navy is that, you're down in the bowels of the ship. If there's a fight going on, you're just focused on doing your job. And yeah, you could get hit by a shell or a missile, and now you're in damage control mode. Now you're solving that problem. And it's not until afterwards that people go, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe that just happened." Same thing with land combat. I think you just go in that zone. And how many times do you hear veterans just say, the training kicked in?
Yeah.
Same thing happened when I had an emergency in the submersible. When we were testing the limiting factor, we had a couple of, let's just call them interesting events in the early days. We had a puff of smoke and this, that, and you just, okay, what's the procedure? You start working the problem. And
astronaut style.
Absolutely. You have to be that way. I mean, I've been a pilot since I was 19, and I've had 2 emergencies in my flying career, and both times you just go, okay, let's solve the problem. And then you have a stiff drink when you get on the ground.
I read that it leaked at some point, the limiting factor.
Yeah,
early on.
People love to focus on that. Yeah.
What does that mean?
We had the hatch just like pouring water in, when we were like at 2 meters of depth, and the O-ring that seals the hatch, well, it had been produced by a manufacturer and it was the correct label and specification, but it had been mislabeled. It was the wrong O-ring. It was too small, but we thought it was the right one because it was labeled that way. So yeah, we found out really quick. Okay, we're going back up. We changed the O-ring and it was fine. So sometimes it's simple, but it looked dramatic.
Yeah.
Of course it did. The last thing you ever want on a submarine is water coming in.
Yeah, exactly. But you dove the Samuel B. Roberts, the USS Johnston. Yep. What were those experiences like? Did you find one of those? Did you identify where
we found both of them. And
they hadn't been found previously.
And I would argue that finding them, especially the Samuel B. Roberts, was even harder than finding the Titanic. It's 1/10 the size.
And these were like the hero ships.
Yeah, and they were the hero ships. I mean, these guys, little Samuel B. Roberts wasn't even as fast as the Johnston and had less than half the guns. And she was trying to keep up with her big brothers taking on these Japanese heavy cruisers. At one point, the Samuel B. Roberts was just laying gunfire into a Japanese heavy cruiser, and the guns of the Japanese cruiser couldn't depress low enough to fire on her.
Really?
Because she was so close. And they thought, well, this is working, until it didn't, of course.
Yeah.
All that happened. But anyway, that
was an innovative maneuver in the heat of battle.
Yeah, that was Commander Copeland, who he actually survived the battle and was awarded the Navy Cross for that.